I always strive to make my answers as informative and professional as possible, so when choosing between my regular hardcore motivational pictures and booty pics, the answer seemed obvious. As always, TLDR at the end, but you will miss a lot of interesting information. Poor jokes aside, in order to understand the best way to build the glutes, we must look at their anatomy. The glutes consist of three main muscles: the gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, and gluteus minimus. The third doesn't contribute much to injury prevention and doesn't have any bodybuilding value, since it's not superficial, not visible. The second, gluteus medius, is the reason for most people's knee pain during squats, and avoiding it will impair your performance. Leighton et al. 2004, Masuda et al. 2005. Besides, people who train it are less likely to be injured. Leighton et al. 2004. How do I train it? Really simple. Leg abductions correspond with the function of this muscle, so doing any variation of them is sufficient. McAdam et al. 2015. However, since they also stabilize the pelvis, doing side planks with leg abductions makes the most sense. This is also supported by Boren et al. 2011, who found that exercise to elicit the highest EMG activation. Adding resistance bands over time is a good way to increase tension. Athlean X also has a unique exercise for this muscle on YouTube. Moreover, dumbbell contralateral lunges have been shown to elicit high activation. Stasny et al. 2015. Besides, warming up before training glutes has a positive effect on glute activation. Parr et al. 2017, Fisher et 2016. Feel free to Google the technique of these movements and start incorporating it into your routine. Now let's talk about gluteus maximus. Squats, right? Not really. Squats are bad glute exercises. Glute activity is highest when the hips are extended, straight torso, but squats provide no tension in the top position. Worrell et al. 2001. You can stand there for hours. Besides, quads are much more active than glutes during squats. Manaba et al. 2007, Pauli et al. 2009, Lin and Knopfel, 2012, and glutes aren't very active at all. Contreras 2015. So if you just want to bring up your glutes, avoid squats. Deadlifts. Not really. A paper published 3 months ago showed glute activation during the deadlift to be 18% less than during the hip thrust. Anderson et al. 2018. Besides, there is again no tension on the glutes in the extended position of the hips, which impairs activation. The conventional deadlifts are very subpar for overall hypertrophy. That's a topic for another answer, but 18% lower than hip thrust isn't too bad. But let's examine the real glute builder, the hip thrust. Contreras et al. 2015 showed the hip thrust to elicit higher glute activation than any other muscle, and his 2016 study reported that the traditional variation reigns supreme when it comes to glute activation. Moreover, the peak tension occurs at the top of the movement, and that is needed to optimize glute recruitment, as I have previously stated. Unfortunately, that's all the research directly on glute activation, and there is even less research on glute hypertrophy. However, there are still things to be said. Brett Contreras himself believes that metabolic stress, muscle damage, and tension all contribute differently to hypertrophy, but I disproved that notion in my answer here. When it comes to glutes in particular, Samakaki et al. 2011 showed that occlusion training didn't do anything for glute hypertrophy, which again proves that metabolic stress isn't a driver of hypertrophy. Finally, the glutes seem to be 60% slow twitch dominant, so you may want to prioritize higher repetitions. 8+. Fry et al. 2004. What should I make of all this? If your goal is to bring up just the glutes, avoid squats and deadlifts. The traditional hip thrust seems to be the best glute activator. Training the gluteus medius is necessary for overall athletic performance and injury prevention. Prioritize higher repetitions. 8+. Warm up the glutes with isolation exercises for better performance. I wish you the best, smart gains.